Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about the hidden costs that you need to make sure you're aware of before buying a house. And I'm going to start this video a little different because the number one thing that you need to be aware of is bad information or information that is not genuine, meaning it's an advertisement. So I want you to watch these first two videos and tell me if you can pick which one is reading a script and which one isn't, and if they're selling the same thing. Because in my opinion, misinformation or misleading information like this is the number one hidden cost of buying a home. Let's check it out.
This is for anyone thinking about buying a house this year or honestly anytime soon. We bought our house a couple of months ago, and going into it, we felt pretty confident. My husband has a lot of construction knowledge, and my father-in-law has worked in it his whole entire life. So when we were touring homes, we felt like we knew what we were looking for. We pointed out things we didn't want and things that could become problems later on. But the reality is you can't see everything. We had a home inspector who came and checked everything out. Of course, there were a few minor things, but nothing that felt huge or a red flag. What nobody prepares you for is the stuff that shows up after you move in. If I had to guess, we've already put close to $5,000 into this. And that is on a home with a brand new roof, new siding, new interior, and even recent additions. Most of all of it was replaced back in 2024 or 2025. Still, we've replaced an ejector pump that was only a year old. We've had to redo a lot of piping because some things weren't up to code. We fixed the furnace, and now we are literally getting the gutters redone because there were no downspouts.
Okay, so that's the first video. Now I want you to check out the second video and again, answer those first questions that I posed to you. Let's check it out.
This is for anybody thinking about buying a house this year or honestly just anytime soon. We bought our house a couple months ago, and going into it, we felt pretty confident. My brother has a lot of construction knowledge and my father-in-law has worked in it his whole life. So when we went to go tour homes, it felt like we knew what we needed to look for. We pointed out all the things that we did not want and then all of the different things that could become problems down the road. But the reality of it is that you cannot see everything. So we had a home inspector and everything checked out really well. Of course, there were a few minor things, but nothing that felt like a huge red flag. But what nobody prepares you for is the stuff that happens after you move in. If I had to take a guess, I would say we've already put about $5,000 into this house. And keep in mind, this is on a house with a brand new roof, new siding, new interior, which is even a recent addition. Most of it was replaced in 2024 or 2025. Still, we've replaced an injector pump that was only about a year old. We redid a lot of the piping because some of it was not up to code, and we fixed our furnace. And now we are literally getting the gutters done because there were no downspouts where they were supposed to be. All of that stuff adds up really fast. So the reason I'm making this video is just to raise awareness that no matter how great.
So as you can see here, guys, same script, two different creators. Is there anything wrong with advertising? No, but it's disingenuous, and really the information is being used to manipulate you. This is the number one hidden cost, especially in the way we deliver information today. So be very aware of who you're listening to, because a lot of folks are just reading scripts. As you can see here, this gentleman read it better than the first lady, but they're advertising for a company. Now, are there hidden costs when buying a home? Yes, there are. These next videos that we react to are actually real people dealing with real situations that you can learn from. Before we go any further, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Robert, and on this channel, we simplify the home loan process. Let's continue.
5 hidden costs to purchasing a home that no one ever really tells you to save for. I'm going to go in order from when they're due. Earnest money, typically 1% of the purchase price. Then there's inspection costs, which, depending on how many inspections you get, could be anywhere between $400 and $700. Then there is the appraisal cost. So if you're getting a loan, you're absolutely going to need an appraisal. That appraisal can be anywhere between $450 to $650. Then you've got your down payment, which is not the same as your closing costs. That's why I put it on the list, because sometimes people think that because these two numbers are due at the same time, they're the same number. They are not. The down payment lowers your loan amount. The closing costs are all the fees associated with it. So number 5, closing costs. The closing costs are the origination fees, the title insurance, your buyer broker compensation, all the fees. That's also due. before you can even get your keys. So those are your 5 hidden costs that people tend to not remind people to save for. So try to save like $10,000 if you can. You don't need 20% down, like ever, unless this is your second home. Then, make that leap to the 20% down, but even then you don't need it. So look into your options. Always go local. I wish you the best in your buying journey.
Love what she said there. Let's recap. I'm gonna start writing stuff down so we don't ramble too much. But the usual suspects, that's what I'll call these: earnest money, option money, inspection, appraisal, down payment. Just briefly, the earnest money, the option money, the appraisal money that is spent up front, and all the other things that she didn't mention that are combined in the closing cost will be brought at the time that you're signing the documents to get the keys for your home loan, consummating the deal. Those will be done, or that money will be brought at the day of closing or escrow, depending on where you are in the country. Now, out of those monies, the option money is very important because that is your insurance before the contract is an official contract, before it's locked in and saying, hey, you're going to buy this house. But that's your insurance premium to let you know, or to give you the option to walk away from a property after your inspection. So you possibly can lose the option money because that goes to the seller for the time that they've taken their house off of the market for you to inspect it. And moreover, the inspection money will be lost in that it will not be deducted from the total closing cost. So the earnest money and option money will be subtracted from the total amount of closing costs because you paid it up front, and you'll be credited for the appraisal because you paid that up front. Now, a couple of other things that can be in this stage of you buying a home. And I like the $10,000 number that she gave because it's more than just your down payment. But if you're buying a house that's over half an acre, a lot of times you're going to have a septic system. You might have well water. These are additional costs that you would have to incur to make sure that those things are in good operable condition before you decide to buy said property. And one other cost that is brought in the total closing cost, but a lot of people don't realize, you want to make sure that the current owner has a valid survey. Surveys are expensive. That's the diagram of your property has it's plotted on the lot. Recently had a deal where you had 2 neighbors that had been neighbors for years, and what the neighbor that was selling the house encroached their driveway onto the neighbor's property. Well, to convolute things, the owner, the neighbor that he had, passed away. And so we had to go through this long, arduous process. Long story short, our borrower didn't close on the home loan because we couldn't find who the heirs were, or there was some drama there. And so earnest money was lost. Appraisal money was lost. And the survey was done, but we got the current owner to take care of that. So there's a lot of things going on. These are some of the upfront costs that aren't talked about. Only thing I would say is local doesn't always mean better. Now that we have the internet, because I lend in multiple states, almost the whole nation, but you need to determine who you want to deal with, not by proximity, but by communication. Do you like the person? Do they know what they're doing? So on and so forth. So thank you, young lady, for your information. Let's continue.
If you are considering buying a home, you need to know about this often missed hidden cost when doing so. I work as a loan officer, and over half the loan estimates I see miss this cost. When someone is selling you a home, there is always an annual tax bill on that property that has already been paid. If you are in a county where property taxes are paid in advance, you will be required to pay the property seller back a proration of that tax bill for the portion of the tax year that you will be living in the home. And property taxes are one of the biggest costs when buying a home. So if your lender forgets to add them on your initial loan estimate, you could be left with an additional $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 that wasn't disclosed to you initially. They'll need to bring to your closing table. Easy way to know if this has not been disclosed. 1, are you in a county where property taxes are paid in advance? You can look that up with a quick Google search. And then finally, on your initial estimate from your lender, tax proration should be listed in this section. If you don't see anything there, they probably haven't disclosed it properly to you.
That's an excellent point when it comes to taxes. And I see this a lot, especially in the beginning of the process when you're shopping for lenders. Lenders will use this trick to try to make you believe that, number one, the amount of monies that you need for closing are a lot less than what they actually are, as well as the payment is a lot smaller. So he's absolutely right. This is a hidden cost. And I wanted to write it down and show you guys. Let me put it in front of the camera here. So you want to look at page 2 and you want to look in section E, because you may have what's called transfer taxes, depending on what state you're living in. That's very important. You want to make sure those are there. Prepaid items, that's for your taxes and or insurance. That's section F. That's where he was pointing out you want to look at on a loan estimate. And then your homeowner's insurance in section G. So these are the places that determine what that cost is, and to get a true picture of your monthly payment and the amount of money you need to bring to close, you really need to be cognizant of those areas. Another thing that you want to make sure is that your realtor or your lender is making sure that the property that you're buying, the current owner, doesn't have exemptions that will not be applicable to you. So homestead exemptions are pretty much the norm. The assumption is you can get that once you're closing. But if you're buying from an elderly person, their taxes could have been super low. And these are the gotchas, some of the hidden costs when you're being pre-approved by folks that are just running you through an algorithm and not getting all your information, and you think you're qualified, and then you could get hit in the head or be very surprised, and more importantly, lose that option money or inspection money because the numbers were not presented to you properly. Just an aside, in order to get proper information, you have to apply properly, meaning you have to submit all your documentation. If that documentation wasn't submitted, that pre-approval you got is, I would treat it with a grain of salt, and you want to be very leery of anything that you're being told, because you're being treated like a commodity at that point, and this is not a process that you could rush. Last thing I want to show you as an example, say you're in Texas. This helps people understand escrow accounts, and I'm just hiding myself here, but let's say, here's a calendar. Let's say you close in March. Your first payment is going to be in May. Well, that first payment that has your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for your escrow account, they collect taxes and insurance on 1/12. And so by the time December comes around, let's say if you're buying in Texas, taxes are paid out in December. They're due by January the 31st. But if you have a servicer, they're paying the taxes in December. Well, they've only collected 8 months of that 12 months of insurance when you establish your loan. So 4 months short, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is why escrow accounts are established, and they collect a little bit more. But that collection, depending on what he was saying, the tax proration, is going to determine how much money you have to bring in closing costs. So the first creator, that's why she's saying you have to have some monies that exceed just the down payment. Okay. And hopefully you're in a market and you have a great team where your sellers are able to negotiate monies for your closing costs based upon their loan program that you're doing, so that more importantly, you have money left over, because life is going to happen and no house is perfect. Eventually, you're going to either have to maintain it or you might have to make some repairs. These are the things that you want to understand going forward, and slow down and make sure you're understanding these numbers. And then there's no remorse because you know before you owe. Hopefully all that makes sense. If you are ready to reach out to a lender and you want to talk with someone, I like to throw my name in a hat. I'm a lender. My NMLS license number is 180100, and my contact information will be in the top pinned comment and in the description of this video. My time is up, but I thank you for yours. As I always say, guys, let's be good to one another. Let grace abound. Check out these next 2 videos. They'll help you in your education and preparing for home ownership. And for the rest of you, indeed, y'all stay blessed.